Hello, Math 2 students. So far in your life as a mathematician, you've been introduced to three function families: the linear function family, the absolute value function family, and the quadratic function family. The purpose of this video is to help you to see that what you've learned about each of those function families can help you understand the next function family. So to begin with, in the linear function family, the parent function is y equals x. What you learned about that was that it is an equation that has a slope of 1 because there's a 1 in front of the x, and it has a y-intercept of 0. The absolute value function family makes a v-shaped graph, and the a value would be 1. And the quadratic function family makes a u-shaped curve, and the parent function has an a value of 1, a b value of 0, and a c value of 0. When we look more closely at the three graphs of the parent functions, we can see that they are all very similar. The linear function family, the line passes through the origin. The absolute value function family, the line passes through the origin. And in the quadratic function family, the graph passes through the origin. But even more interesting is that if we look at the next point, when I go over 1 and up 1, I hit the line on the graph of the linear function family. If I go over 1 and up 1, I hit the line on the graph of the absolute value function family. And if I go over 1 and up 1, I hit the line on the graph of the quadratic function family. Now we're going to take a look at what happens if the number in front of the x changes. So now in the linear function family, what you learned was that makes a slope of 2. In the absolute value function family, that makes a vertical stretch of 2. And in the quadratic function family, that also makes a vertical stretch of 2. So when we take a closer look at those graphs, every graph still goes through the origin. The difference is now they are stretched out in the vertical direction. Instead of going over 1 and up 1, now we go over 1 and up 2. Here, instead of going over 1 and up 1 like the parent function, we go over 1 and up 2. It's a vertical stretch of 2. And finally, in the quadratic function family, instead of going over 1 and up 1 like the parent function, we go over 1 and up 2. So all of these graphs have a vertical stretch of 2. If the a value, for example, on the quadratic function family, is a proper fraction, you will have a vertical shrink. And if any of these numbers, the slope or the a value, are negative, you will have a reflection over the x-axis. Now we're going to take a look at the linear function family when you take the parent function and add a 2 onto the end. Or if you take the absolute value function family and you take the parent function and add a 2 onto the end. Or if you take the quadratic function family and take the parent function but add a 2 onto the end. If you compare the parent function to our new graph, the shape of the graph is the same, but now its location on the graph paper has changed. So you can see that this looks exactly like the parent function, but now it doesn't pass through the origin anymore. It passes 2 units up from the origin. In the linear function family, that was called the y-intercept. In the absolute value function family, so you can see instead of having the V-shaped graph with its vertex at the origin, now the V-shaped graph has its vertex at 0, 2. It has been translated up 2 units by adding the 2 onto the end. In the quadratic function family, again, our U-shaped parabola does not go through the origin. Adding 2 onto the parent function translates the graph up 2 units. So the same thing that you learned about the y-intercept when you were learning about the linear function family, how the y-intercept would move the graph up 2 spaces, the same thing happens on the absolute value function family, and the same thing happens on the quadratic function family. So hopefully by watching this video, you see that you know more about the quadratic function family than you think you do. because all of the information that you've already learned by learning about the absolute value function family and linear function family, those same things apply to the quadratic function family.